Today we shall not speak of those ethereal immortals and ghosts, nor tell of those romantic debts between talented scholars and beautiful ladies. We shall simply recount a legend of iron and blood that is utterly true. The protagonist of this legend is, among China's 5,000 years of history, the founding emperor with the humblest birth, the most ruthless methods, and the most illustrious achievements. Who is he? None other than the great Ming Hongwu Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang. Indeed, but do you all know that this supreme ruler, who commands respect across the realm, was once a miserable soul who couldn't even clothe his body or fill his belly, and when his parents died, had nowhere to bury them? He'd been a cattle herder, a monk, and a wandering beggar priest who got nothing but dirty looks from people on the street. This is no fabrication from opera texts, but real history written in blood and tears. Truly, as the saying goes, started with nothing but a begging bowl, ended up ruling an empire. Now he controls everything, but who remembers what he went through to get there? The journey to rewrite fate is 10,000 times more twisted and thrilling than any storybooks. Now, quiet your hearts and focus your minds as I carefully recount this eternal legend of Lord Hongwu. Speaking of the final years of the Yuan Dynasty, those were truly the darkest of times. The Mongol Yuan court was utterly corrupt, crushing the people with brutal taxes, and fate itself seemed merciless as disasters struck repeatedly along both banks of the Huai River. Drought, locusts, and plague took turns ravaging the land. Truly, it was a time when white bones lay scattered in the wilderness, and not a rooster crowed for miles around. In Taiping village, Zhongli, Haozhou, present-day Fengyang, Anhui, there lived a family named Zhu, dirt poor with nothing but bare walls, surviving entirely by renting a few acres of worthless farmland from landlord Liu Dai. In the first year of Yuan Wenzong's Tianli era, that autumn of 1328, a child was born to this family. Since this boy was the eighth among his clan brothers, his father Zhu Wuxi, just hearing this name tells you how poor they were, couldn't be bothered to think much, and casually named him Zhu Chongba. Don't underestimate these two characters, Chongba. In the Yuan dynasty, how could these dirt-poor common folk deserve proper names? Most used things like their parents' combined ages, like Wuxi, or birth dates, like Chongba, as names. These three characters, Zhu Chongba, were branded with the mark of that era's common people, lowly as dust. Little Chongba's childhood was spent herding cattle for landlord Liu Dai's family. Through wind and rain, sometimes hungry and sometimes fed, enduring endless humiliation. He often joined fellow cattle-herding boys, Tang He, Shu Da, and others, and when they were starving so badly their ribs showed through their skin, they dared to slaughter the landlord's calves to roast and eat, then had to stick the cow's tail into rock crevices, fooling the landlord by claiming the calf had somehow crawled into the mountain. You can see that even as a child, he was no pushover. 5, but even greater suffering lay ahead. In the fourth year of Yuan Shundi's Zhizheng era, 1344, the lands north of the Huai River suffered terrible drought stretching for hundreds of miles. Swarms of locusts blocked out the sun, followed immediately by a devastating plague. 16-year-old Zhu Chongba watched helplessly over just 10 days as his father Zhu Wuxi, mother Chen, and eldest brother Zhu Chongxi died one after another from starvation and disease. How heartbreaking. Truly unbearable to witness. The Zhu family was so poor they couldn't afford even a cheap coffin. Chongba and his only surviving second brother Zhu Chongliu begged the heavens but got no answer, pleaded with the earth but received only silence. They could only wrap their family's remains in torn rags, desperately wanting to find a burial plot but unable to find one. How could that landlord Liu Dai spare even a scrap of land for them? Finally, neighbor Liu Jizu couldn't stand watching any longer, took pity on them, and donated a piece of wasteland. The two brothers were carrying the bodies for burial when suddenly fierce winds rose, lightning flashed and thunder crashed, and torrential rain poured down. It said that the mountainside, actually collapsed on its own, burying their relatives' remains. This became the legendary Fengyang Mausoleum's divine burial ground. Folks, this series of devastating blows cut deep into young Zhu Yuanzhang's soul. His parents' deaths weren't acts of God, but results of a broken system. It was this cruel world, these heartless, powerful families, that destroyed his family. This burning hatred toward the corrupt landlord class, and his first-hand experience of society falling apart, seared into his very being like a brand, shaping his later ruthless, suspicious nature while also giving him deep compassion for ordinary people. 5. To survive, Chongba and his brother went their separate ways. With nowhere else to turn, Chongba remembered his parents had once made religious vows, steeled himself, and went to nearby Huangjue Temple, where he shaved his head and became a novice monk. Calling himself a monk was really just being a servant, doing menial work, sweeping floors daily, burning incense, ringing bells, cooking meals, and still having to put up with the senior monk's bad tempers. But even this meager existence couldn't last, as Huangjue Temple soon ran out of food in these chaotic times. The temple's abbot had no choice but to send all the monks away to wander and beg for alms on their own. 17-year-old Zhu Chongba, wearing a tattered bamboo hat and carrying a black ceramic begging bowl, dressed in patched robes, embarked on 3 years of wandering and begging. He traveled throughout the major cities of the Huaishi region and ventured into remote villages, sleeping rough and scrounging for food, experiencing the full range of human kindness and cruelty. He got an up-close look at the Yuan Empire's countless problems and the people's simmering rage. In this crucible of society's lowest depths, he forged his iron will, his ability to read people's hearts, and his determination to achieve his goals by any means necessary. These 3 years of begging looked like a dead end, but were actually fate's first and harshest training ground. They transformed him from a naive boy into a man with nerves of steel and brilliant foresight, a hero ready for turbulent times. By the 12th year of Zhizheng 1352, the whole country had erupted into chaos. The Red Turban Uprising, led by Han Shantong and Liu Futong, was blazing across the land, with rebel fires burning from the great rivers to the northern plains. On this day, the still wandering Zhu Yuanzhang suddenly received an extraordinary letter. Guess who wrote it? None other than his childhood cattle-herding buddy, Tang He. Tang He had risen to become a captain commanding 1,000 men under Marshal Guo Zixing of the Haozhou Red Turbans. He was writing to invite Zhu Chongba to join the army and seek fortune together. Chongba's heart was racing, torn between his options. Join the army? That was treason, punishable by death. The Yuan forces were still strong, and one wrong move could cost him his head. Don't go? The world had no safe havens left. Staying at the temple or continuing to beg would eventually mean death anyway. As they say, when in doubt, seek divine guidance. He went back to Huangjue Temple and threw divination sticks before the Buddha statue. 3 straight readings came back saying running away or staying put both spell doom, but facing danger head-on brings no harm. In other words, escaping and hiding were both dead ends, but throwing himself into that dangerous rebel cause might actually offer a fighting chance. Crack! At that moment, fate's dice were cast. 25-year-old Zhu Chongba's eyes suddenly blazed with fierce determination. He violently smashed his begging bowl, shattering it to pieces. That single act completely severed ties with his miserable past. He strode out of the temple gates without looking back, heading straight for Haozhou City. 5. That one smash created the Hongwu Emperor. From that moment on, there was no longer a beggar named Zhu Chongba in this world, only the future hero, Zhu Yuanzhang. When he first entered the military camp, his striking appearance, historical records describe him as having commanding presence and extraordinary features, combined with his quick wit and courage, made him stand out immediately. During one incident, he was falsely accused of being a Yuan spy, and dragged before Marshal Guo Zixing. Facing death, he showed no fear and spoke with such passion and conviction that Guo Zixing realized this was no ordinary man. He freed him on the spot and promoted him to captain of 9 personal guards. Even more impressive was that Zhu Yuanzhang could read and write. He'd made a point to learn during his begging years, handled responsibilities efficiently, and consistently proved himself in battle. Guo Zixing grew increasingly fond of him and eventually arranged for him to marry his own virtuous adopted daughter, Miss Ma. Exactly. This Miss Ma would later become the legendary Empress Xiao Qi Gao of the Great Ming. She was absolutely vital to Zhu Yuanzhang's success. Throughout his years of conquest and empire building, she was his rock-solid support and most trusted partner. Zhu Yuanzhang had a hair-trigger temper and often wanted people executed, but only Empress Ma could talk him down, saving countless lives. She would tuck hot bread inside her clothes, burning her own skin, just to make sure her hard-working husband got a warm meal. Such devotion was especially precious in the cutthroat world of imperial politics. 5. Now that he had status and a family, he couldn't keep being called Zhu Chongba. He gave himself a powerful new name, Zhu Yuanzhang. Zhang refers to a sharp jade weapon. Yuan means the Yuan Dynasty, so Zhu Yuanzhang literally means the blade that will destroy the Yuan Dynasty. His grand ambitions were crystal clear. But army life was no cakewalk. Guo Zixing was petty and constantly suspicious of him. Zhu Yuanzhang, reading the writing on the wall, knew that depending on others was no long-term strategy. In the 13th year of Zhizheng, 1353, he boldly returned to his hometown Zhongli, using his growing reputation and natural charisma to recruit over 700 local young men, including future stars like Xu Da, Zhou Dexing, and Guo Ying. This became his core team, the foundation of what would later be known as the powerful Huaishi Nobles faction. He led this absolutely loyal force back to Haozhou, but soon clashed again with other rebel leaders and decided to strike out on his own. In the 14th year of Zhizheng, 1354, he handpicked just 24 trusted followers, including Xu Da, Tang He, Wu Liang, Wu Zhen, Hua Yun, Chen De, Gu Shi, Fei Zhu, Gang Zaicheng, Gang Bingwen, Tang Shengzong, Lu Zhongheng, Hua Yunlong, Guo Xing, Guo Ying, Zhou Dexing and others, all 24, would later become famous generals and be granted titles as dukes and ministers, and headed south to Dingyuan to build his independent power base. This move was the crucial first step toward becoming a true warlord in his own right. After Zhu Yuanzhang broke free from the Haozhou forces, he was like a shark that had finally reached open water, launching into a period of explosive growth. He first cunningly captured Donkey Brand Stockade, absorbing 3,000 militia troops, then launched a surprise night raid on Hengjian Mountain, convincing Yuan General Miao Daheng to surrender, along with 20,000 crack troops. His military power skyrocketed. Next, he took advice from his top strategists, Feng Guoyong and Li Shanchang, establishing a master plan. Seize Jinling Jiqing Prefecture, later renamed Yingtian Prefecture, as his home base, then expand in every direction to build an empire. In the 16th year of Zhizheng, 1356, Zhu Yuanzhang personally led combined naval and land forces to capture Jiqing Prefecture, renaming it Yingtian Prefecture. Listen up, folks. This Yingtian is today's Nanjing, a city blessed with natural defenses and imperial destiny written in its very bones. By securing this prize, Zhu Yuanzhang now had the resources to play for the ultimate stakes. So what was the big picture at this point? Up north, Lu Futong's Red Turban army was locked in brutal combat with the main Yuan forces, drawing most of the dynasty's military attention. Down south, powerful warlords were carving up territory. To the west sat Chen Yuliang, ruling Huguang with the title Han Emperor. He had the biggest army, the grandest ambitions, and a fleet of massive warships that darkened the rivers. He was Zhu Yuanzhang's most dangerous rival. To the east was Zhang Shicheng, controlling the wealthy Jiangsu and Zhejiang provinces with the title King of Zhou. He was rolling in money but lacked real vision, more interested in the good life than conquest. Plus, you had other regional strongmen like Fang Guozhen in eastern Zhejiang, Chen Yuding in Fujian, Ming Yuzhen in Sichuan, all running their own little kingdoms. Facing this powder keg situation, Zhu Yuanzhang showed incredible patience and strategic smarts that put all the other warlords to shame. He followed the brilliant 9-word formula given to him by the hermit scholar Zhu Sheng: build high walls, store grain widely, be slow to claim kingship. These 9 words were pure strategic gold. Build high walls, lock down your home base, beef up your military and defenses until your territory is fortress, solid. Store grain widely, pump up agricultural production, create a citizen, soldier system where people farm and fight, guaranteeing steady supplies. Unlike other warlords who lived by looting, he built a sustainable economic engine. Be slow to claim kingship. Absolutely brilliant. Back then, whoever jumped up first to crown himself king or emperor instantly became enemy number 1 for both the Yuan dynasty and every other ambitious warlord. Since Lu Futong had already set up the little Ming king Han Liner, Zhu Yuanzhang played it smart by officially accepting the title Duke of Wu and staying in the background while building real power. Meanwhile, Chen Yuliang and Zhang Shicheng couldn't wait to declare themselves emperor and king, painting huge targets on their backs. He dispatched his best generals like Xu Da and Chang Yuchun on campaigns in every direction, steadily gobbling up neighboring territories. He recruited top scholars, bringing in heavy hitters like Lu Bowen, Song Lian, Ye Chen, Zhang Yi, and the other 4 masters of eastern Zhejiang to round out his brain trust. He won over the common people by keeping taxes low in his territories, rebuilding the economy, and earning their loyalty. He was like the most seasoned predator, lying low in tall grass, quietly building his strength, studying his prey with cold calculation, waiting for that perfect moment to strike the killing blow. The moment of truth had finally arrived. In the 23rd year of Zhizheng, 1363, Zhu Yuanzhang and Chen Yuliang, these 2 powerhouses, clashed in an earth-shattering showdown at Poyang Lake to settle who would rule the south. This battle's massive scale, brutal fighting, and game-changing impact earned it the title of the greatest naval battle in medieval world history. Chen Yuliang came loaded for bear, commanding 600,000 troops and hundreds of massive warships. His ships towered several stories high, built with 3 decks, their hulls armored in iron plating, their prows carved with fierce dragon heads. They looked like floating fortresses, absolutely terrifying. Meanwhile, Zhu Yuanzhang had only 200,000 men, and his fleet was made up entirely of small, fast ships. Talk about David versus Goliath. In the opening round, Zhu Yuanzhang got his clock cleaned. Chen Yuliang's giant ships locked together into a floating wall of steel, steamrolling forward with unstoppable force. Zhu Yuanzhang's top fighters Song Gui, Chen Zhaoxian, and others were killed in action, and the man himself barely escaped capture several times. But sometimes, your darkest hour comes right before dawn. Zhu Yuanzhang's Lieutenant General Guo Xing stepped up with some hard truth. "Boss, it's not that our guys aren't fighting their hearts out, but those enemy ships are monsters. Only one thing's gonna crack them open: fire." Zhu Yuanzhang took that advice and ran with it. He handpicked his most fearless soldiers to captain 7 fire ships packed to the gills with gunpowder and dry reeds. They waited for the wind to shift, then charged straight at Chen Yuliang's linked battleships. What happened next was pure poetry in motion. The east wind kicked up something fierce, sending flames shooting toward heaven. 7 fire ships blazed like 7 fire-breathing dragons, slamming head-on into the Han army's formation. The fire fed off the wind fanned the flames, and in a heartbeat, hundreds of those giant ships were swallowed by an inferno. Everything burned: masts, oars, the works, until soldiers were crying for their mothers, and even the lake water glowed red-hot. Chen Yuliang's army fell apart completely. Zhu Yuanzhang seized the moment and ordered an all-out assault. In the chaos of battle, that so-called invincible Han emperor, Chen Yuliang, caught a stray arrow right through the skull and dropped dead on the spot. With their commander down for the count, those 600,000 troops scattered like leaves in a hurricane. The Battle of Poyang Lake saw Zhu Yuanzhang pull off the ultimate underdog victory, wiping out his strongest enemy and setting himself up to rule the entire south. This battle was so intense that when Zhu Yuanzhang looked back on it later, he still got the shakes. He put it straight: "Since the Wushu year 1358, out of all my military victories, the Battle of Poyang Lake was the big kahuna, man. Was that a nail-biter?" With his toughest rival Chen Yuliang out of the picture, the remaining Zhang Shicheng wasn't even worth sweating over. Sure, this Zhang Shicheng controlled the wealthy city of Pingjiang Suzhou with its sky-high walls and fortress-like defenses, but the guy was small-time with zero vision. His officers and men had gone soft, living the high life and losing their fighting edge. Zhu Yuanzhang played it smart with a wait-them-out strategy, surrounding the city without attacking for 10 solid months. Finally broke through in the 27th year of Zhizheng 1367. Zhang Shicheng got captured and ended up hanging himself. Sure, Chen Yuliang went down in flames, but you've got to give the devil his due, he was still a legend in his own right. Zhang Shicheng might have had deep pockets, but when push came to shove, he was just a fancy guard dog. The fact that Zhu Yuanzhang steamrolled both these guys wasn't just luck, it was the perfect storm of destiny and pure strategic genius. His ability to see the big picture, pick the right people for the job, and make split-second battlefield decisions left his opponents eating dust. After cleaning house in the south, Zhu Yuanzhang set his sights on the crumbling Yuan court up north. In the 10th month of the 27th year of Zhizheng 1367, Zhu Yuanzhang named Shu Da as general for conquering the barbarians and Chang Yuchun as his right-hand man, leading 250,000 crack troops on a do-or-die mission to take the north. At the same time, he rolled out the famous Proclamation to the Central Plains, penned by the brilliant scholar Song Lian, which laid out his battle cry: "Kick out the foreign invaders, take back our homeland, restore law and order, rescue our people." This proclamation struck a chord with northern Han landlords and regular folks alike, giving Zhu Yuanzhang the moral high ground for his northern campaign. The northern expedition rolled through everything in its path. The Yuan dynasty was rotten to the core, with warlords backstabbing each other left and right, totally unable to put up a real fight. In the 7th month of the first year of Hongwu, 1368, Ming forces closed in on Dadu Beijing. On the 28th day of the intercalary 7th month, Emperor Yuan Shundi threw in the towel at midnight, opening the Jiande Gate and hightailing it north with his wives and crown prince, retreating to the northern grasslands. On the 2nd day of the 8th month, Shu Da's army waltzed into Dadu without firing a shot. The Yuan dynasty, which had ruled China for 98 years, was officially history. Earlier that same year, with victory songs echoing from the successful northern campaign, 41-year-old Zhu Yuanzhang performed the ancient rituals in the southern suburbs of Yingtian Prefecture and claimed the imperial throne. He named his dynasty Great Ming, chose Hongwu as his reign title, made his beloved wife Ma the empress, and declared his eldest son Zhu Biao the crown prince. At that moment, the whole world shifted. A farm kid who grew up herding cattle in Fenyang's fields, a young monk from Huangju Temple, a beggar who had wandered the streets asking for scraps, through sheer grit, street smarts, and iron will, having survived every kind of hardship and danger you can imagine, finally made it to the top of the mountain as Emperor of China. This wasn't just one man's rags-to-riches story, but the stuff of legend. It was the most incredible social climbing act in all of Chinese history. The mix of jaw-dropping drama and cold, hard reality left people shaking their heads in amazement for generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, if you think this story wraps up with a nice, neat bow and everyone lives happily ever after, think again. The drama after he grabbed the throne was even more brutal than anything that happened on the battlefield. After Zhu Yuanzhang locked down his position as emperor, his dirt-poor background meant he knew exactly what regular folks went through and had zero tolerance for crooked officials. He became one of the most hard-working rulers in Chinese history, getting up before sunrise and burning the midnight oil, micromanaging everything from major policies down to the smallest details. He kicked the economy into high gear, pushed farmers to clear new land, built massive irrigation projects. In the 28th year of Hongwu alone, they dug 40,987 ponds and dams nationwide, cut taxes, and got the country back on its feet fast. But here's the flip side. Those same tough early years also turned him into a deeply paranoid old man who trusted absolutely nobody. He constantly worried that his war buddies who helped him win the throne would turn around and stab him in the back, and that government officials were pulling fast ones on him while bleeding the people dry. So he went completely nuclear, launching one terrifying bloodbath after another. He used the Hu Weiyang case 1380 and the Lan Yu case 1393 to basically wipe out his entire founding crew in one fell swoop, scorched earth style. The body count from these purges hit the tens of thousands. On the civilian side, Li Shanchang, Wang Guangyang, Song Lian barely escaped the chopping block thanks to Empress Ma stepping in, got shipped off to exile instead. On the military side, Lan Yu, Fu Yud, Feng Sheng, almost nobody made it out alive. Only Tang He, Shuda word is, he had a nasty back infection, and Zhu Yuanzhang sent him some steamed goose that finished him off after he ate it. Though people argue about whether that's true, Gang Bingwen and a tiny handful of others managed to dodge the bullet. He scrapped the chancellor system that had been running the show for over 1,000 years, hoarding all the power for himself and setting up the blueprint for the iron-fisted dictatorships that would define the Ming and Qing dynasties. His way of dealing with corrupt officials was absolutely savage, the kind of stuff nightmares are made of. He ordered that any official who pocketed more than 60 taels of silver would get their head chopped off in public and then get skinned like an animal. They'd peel off the skin, stuff it with straw, and turn it into a crooked official scarecrow that got hung up in government offices to make sure other officials got the message loud and clear. Zhu Yuanzhang's reign was a walking contradiction. He treated ordinary people like his own kids, while treating his officials like dirt under his boot. He worked his tail off running the country while using absolutely brutal terror tactics to stay in power. His paranoia and vicious streak came straight from his hard-scrabble background and the cutthroat world he fought through to reach the top. Everything he did boiled down to one obsession: clearing out every possible threat to his hand-picked heir, Crown Prince Zhu Biao, and later his grandson Zhu Yunwen, so the Zhu family could rule forever and ever. But you know what they say about the best-laid plans. Right after he died, his son, the Prince of Yanzhou Di, launched the Jingnan campaign and snatched the throne right out from under his grandson's nose. That was probably the last thing the old man ever saw coming. On the 10th day of the 5th intercalary month of the 31st year of Hongwu, 1398, 71-year-old Ming Taizu Zhu Yuanzhang, after pouring every ounce of his life into ruling, died peacefully in the Nanjing Imperial Palace. He was laid to rest at Shaoling on Purple Mountain in Nanjing. His final words said it all. "I've carried the weight of heaven's mandate for 31 years, with constant worry and danger eating at me, grinding away day and night without a break, trying my best to help the people. But coming from nothing, without the deep learning of the old masters, my attempts to reward good and punish evil have fallen way short. He was gone, leaving behind an empire that was just getting back on its feet, but where everyone walked on eggshells because of his reign of terror. He left behind an impossible-to-repeat rags-to-riches story that no one will ever match, and he left behind a complicated legacy that historians are still fighting about to this day. Ladies and gentlemen, Zhu Yuanzhang's life was an epic tale, written in suffering, cunning, political gamesmanship, and blood. He kicked out foreign rulers and put China back in Chinese hands. That's a legacy worth remembering forever. He busted his butt running the country and genuinely cared about regular folks' problems. That's what a real leader does. But his methods were absolutely brutal, and he had way too much blood on his hands. You can't sugarcoat that kind of tyranny. He was both the good guy and the bad guy rolled into one. A hero and a killer. That contradiction, that realness, is exactly what makes him so fascinating. His story shows us how the tides of history can lift a nobody to the very top, and how being at the top can completely change who you are inside. That's a wrap on this story, folks. Stick around for the next tales of different Chinese dynasties and the stories of those who lived through them. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe for more content.